Welcome to the Ohio Fly Tying Guild. I'm Gary Begley. Thank you for joining us. Now, the Guild is a function of the Buckeye United Fly Fishers, my local club near Cincinnati, and the Ohio Council of Fly Fishers International. That said, I'm going to jump right into the flies. I have two flies planned, as usual. I have a real old fly from the 1930s, a Mickey fin, and a fly that I kind of tweaked. It's just a basic jig pattern, Jig Nymph. I'm gonna call it a PS because it's pine squirrel. Um, Show you the fly first of all, and it is on a jig style hook with a slotted bead, so it is designed to ride upside down or hook point up, I should say. Um, I'm sure it doesn't when you first throw it in, but as you maneuver it and or strip it, I'm sure it would turn over. Just but designed by the how where the hook eye is. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one out. Well, let me show you this other one. Um, I'm experimenting about it's the same fly, but just tied a little differently. This one is much more sparse. This one looks much buggier on the device. So it's just going to depend on what you're looking for. And I have one that is much buggier. And I'll show you how I get that just by controlling the length and the amount of the collar that we put in. So that said, get this out of the vise. And a fresh hook. Make sure I got my hook turned the right way, or my bead turned the right way, excuse me. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a square. I've got a larger one I'm going to show you guys in case you're not familiar with this style hook. The slot in the bead that's the typical round hole. The other side is a slot. And the one side of the slot is an arc, and the other side just goes straight across. You want to put the arc side up so it'll slide down in and go right down onto the hook eye like that. I'm going to use red thread this evening. I'm going to start this right behind the bead, but that's not going to be good enough to keep it from spinning around on me while I'm tying. So I'm going to put just a little ball of dubbing right up behind the bead to keep it in place. So I don't have to keep turning around and checking if it's turning the correct direction. So a little bit more dubbing. Okay. Head to the rear, we're going to tie on a tail. Now, a couple different materials that I've used for the tail. Original ones, I started off with just some body hair from pine squirrel. What I do is just take a zonker strip and just about 1/8 of an inch worth of that and cut that off. And there's good tailing material. But for this evening, the one I'm going to tie is going to be with a red tail. And I just got a piece of schlepping. I'm going to get about 1/2 inch along the rachis And I'm going to grab that and pull it off. I always pull toward, pull the, move the rest of the feather down away from the butt. And I always like to cut these little curly McHughs off. And I like this tail about half the hook length, hook shank length, I should say. Always check because I usually get it too long. There you go. Line that back down up the hook shank. All right, next we need a piece of wire for a rib. And I'm going to use silver, small size ultra wire. Tied some of them with a gold bead as opposed to this black nickel. And those I use a gold wire. Now I want this wire to be on the bottom. So I can just keep going like that, or it's a lot easier with a rotary vise. Just turn it around this way. That way I can see exactly where it's going. All right, now I need to get the dubbing out. Now I've got raked dubbing from the pine squirrel. I'll go ahead and get my squirrels out over here on the other camera. I've got one pine squirrel that's zonked, and the other one is the whole skin. And a lot of you guys have seen me use the rake before. You can look back if you want a longer discussion about it. Utilizing the rake. I think it was guild number 5 where I first announced it. So there's just them pine squirrel dubbing. And I've got a whole box of various dubbings. I'll add that to the mix. Wax on there. And of course, you can dub this as sparse as you like. I'll get a pretty thick dubbing noodle. Got to come up with a buggy fly. One more turn back here. There we go. I'll leave a little bit of room up front. I am going to get a little more dubbing. I do want a little bit of room behind the bead. I'm going to put a collar in. Need room to tie that off. Now I like to counter wrap wire. this helicoptered off. I'm going to pull tension on the thread and hold the hook. Get rid of my excess. I'm going to use small section of the zonker off of this pine squirrel in order to create the collar. I'm going to get about a ½ inch along the leather. Put that off camera here. And I'm going to use a split thread dubbing loop. I could just make a regular dubbing loop. It's flattened out best it will. And lay it on my thumbnail. Then take my bodkin. All right, now, I need to insert this. And I could try fighting through there and not get the hairs out of place. Or I could just pull the thread taut. And this is part of the trick of how buggy you want the fly to turn out. You can move this back and forth, go out to the end, make just a real thinner collar, go back this way, and get it thickened up. I'm going to try to go for a buggy one, so I'm going to leave a lot of hair there. Get rid of that. Still pulling tension on the thread, so it'll stay together. I want to spin. Spinning just the bobbin takes a little longer than some of the dubbing twisters, but we'll get there. A little bit more. I don't want to go too far because you can break the thread. All right. Wrap the collar. Stroke these fibers back gently because they're just held in with the tension of the thread. Little red band there. I can't help but think that it works for a hot spot, so to speak. And whip finish. My thought is once this gets in the water, you start maneuvering it and stripping it, bounce it along the bottom. These hairs are going to go back, of course, but I'm thinking that they're going to spring back and provide some movement. So there's what I call a PS Jig Nymph. Tied on a jig hook with slotted beads, so it should ride like this in a while. Questions, comments?
For a size 12, I don't know, let's say it's a 2 millimeter or something like that. Would that translate to slotted also?
Let me show you they go by measurements, 1/8 of an inch diameter. And of course, 1/8 of an inch is going to be the same whether it's slotted or whether it's just got the standard
Okay.
tooth holes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. That got your question, Larry?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Anybody else?
Gary, do you have an opinion on the splitting the thread versus a loop? One better than another?
if you tie a regular dubbing loop, it's going to have two strands of a full thread.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and it's going to, I would say it's going to hold together longer, better. It's going to be stronger, but you're also going to build up more bulk. Move on to the second fly, which is a very, very old fly. It's a Mickey fin. That's what's called, we refer to them as a hair wing fly. According to what I found on history, there was early 1930s is when it was first sold commercially. Have any of you guys ever fished any hair wing flies like this? It's just bucktail is all it is.
Yeah,
Well,
that's about one of the first flies I started tying about 45 years ago.
oh really? Yeah. Um, I have done pretty well on larger sizes on smallmouth in my local waters. I'm thinking it's just a minnow imitation.
Yeah, that's what I use it for, was smallmouth.
Uh-huh. Yep. And you wouldn't have to stick with this color combination. You could use white on the bottom or even white diamond braid on the hook instead of this mylar tinsel, and then switch to a maybe like one little small strand of white bucktail, and then go into the colors, whatever bait fish you're trying to imitate. We use a streamer hook, four down to 10 is what's recommended. I got this 300 TMC just because it's the right type, right style of hook, and I happen to have it. I use black thread, 70 denier again, and these patterns done properly require a super smooth thread base and smooth underbody. So when you wrap the mylar tinsel, it's not going to have any lumps and bumps and such. And of course, you guys all know this is going to take a little while for me to do that. So I'm going to cheat somewhat because this isn't going in a frame somewhere. It's going in my fly box. So I'm not going to be too concerned about not having a super, super smooth body underneath the tinsel. We'll go ahead and get a nice thin thread base. Get rid of that tag. On back. Now, got a piece of rib material. What I'm going to use for the rib is French tinsel, medium size, oval silver. And got a piece here long enough, and this style of tying, lay this in, have enough extra to come out the front, and it needs to be tied in on the bottom. And again, we want nice, tight touching, flat thread turns. And I'm not going to do, again, I'm not intentionally not going to get too concerned with it. I said before, this is easier to tie something in, at least for me, easier to tie something in on top as opposed to on the bottom of the hook shank. So if I invert the hook, actually it looks like I'm tying on the top. I'm a view from the nice smooth underbody right here. Next step would be the mylar tinsel. I use size medium. It's the gold silver stuff. I'm going to use the silver side. Yeah, Paul asked about gold or silver. I would think if I was going to tie one in different color combination, and it had like, for example, a minnow with a yellowish belly right up above the white part, I probably would tie it in gold. That far, I want to get a little bit of a thread base here for my wing material. And I'm going to do a quick half hitch back here. And I'm going to wrap this rotary style. I'm going to get at the same angle all the way. Time for some bucktail. One over, I'm going to trade the pine squirrel for a couple pieces of bucktail. Yellow, red. I'm just going to get a small amount of yellow starting off. I'm going to get it cleaned out. There'll be some short ones in there. And I'm going to use Bead's method of judging how much to get. I'm going to twist this, and it should be about the diameter of the hook eye. And I'm going to need to, let me go back to the vise just a sec. This is very long. It doesn't need to be that long going in the stacker. It's just going to complicate things. So I'm going to cut this off. Get rid of about that much. And get this down in the hair stacker. So there's that first section of hair. It's real long. I like this back to the end of the bend. Spin my thread so it'll bind into it really well. Good tight turns. I want it spinning around. Of course, there's a little bit of a cliff where the hair is, and then it slides off the hair down to the hook. If you can get your thread in the front, it's much easier to climb up that than it is to try to cover things up going rearward because it always falls off the cliff. Okay, there's my first stack of wing. The next one is red. Basically the same story. I like this one to be just a little more hair. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of the short ones out of here. And again, that's going to be much longer than I need. If that much extra is just going to get in the way. I'll be stacking. Now this red one is, the tips are kind of flared out quite a bit. That's going to be a bit of a chore to get in the hair stacker. Well, so I watched Gretchen Beady do a demo the other day, and she said, well, why don't we just put it in backwards? Because the butts are all nice and lined up. As long as we've got the tips pointing down, that's all we're after. As far as I'm concerned, that's a good little tip. Odd looking ones here. Get rid of those. This needs to be the same length. Mark this spot, the spot where my tie-in spot with my thumb, so I know where I can cut this off. I try to cut at a slight angle going rearward. And then the top part of the wing, back to yellow. I like this one to be a little thicker batch of hair than the previous one. Get rid of the short ones. It's going to be a little bit larger diameter. Well, then have to go to put it in backwards. There's my next batch. All right. There we go. Starting to look like something. I'm going to do a whip finish. Do a half hitch first. I always see flies like this with a nice shiny head. There's a lot of thread wraps out there too, so you need to get something on there, at least head cement. My plan is to put a coat of UV. If you look at this brush on this applicator, the bristles are really not very thick at all. I've cut about half of them out, and sometimes at this one I put a little bit of an angle, so I got a point so I can go into tighter areas. Right. So there's a quick gilled version of a Mickey fin. If you guys haven't fished flies like this, give them a try. You might well be surprised.
Do you ever put any weight or anything on those, Gary?
I have never. You certainly could. I've never weighted a Mickey fin style pattern, a hair wing pattern.
Yeah, I do that if I'm fishing, a little faster water just to get them down.
It's a good idea, I think. Yeah, for the most part, I think. Well, you could wait beyond the bead. You could the first fly I tied. You could put a few turns of lead on under that as well.
Yeah,
Get-
as far as that bead head, I haven't used any slotted ones, but the normal bead heads, usually when I put those on, I'll take 2, 3, 4 wraps of lead around the hook shank, then shove up inside the hole. Then when you tie it behind it, then it just tightens it right down and keeps it stable. And
Yeah,
it's a little bit more weight too.
Yep. And it keeps your bead, it solidifies your bead and keeps it centered on the hook. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I've done that as well. The slotted bead, I would have to get it. It's got such a large hole compared to the regular beads. I would have to have a really thick piece of lead, probably 0.035, put it in there and take a couple wraps to actually stick it in there to get it solidified. So that's why I opted for the small ball of dubbing wax or dubbing.
Yeah, I think that was a good option. Just something to pack inside the hole.
Yeah, that and it keeps it forward, keeps it up, keeps the front portion of the bead up against the hook eye. Because I've tied 2 or 3 of them without doing something of that nature, and I 3 or 4 times I'm spinning around as it still. I know it moved. Where's the round part? I need to get that turned up. So I'm messing around with the bead as much as I am the other materials. Well, I need to do something.
Maybe use some dubbing, put some of that UV coating on it, slide it up inside there, and hit her with the light. See what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. You get it packed up in there. That'd be worth a try. Yep. Let's see. Tim made it, and half of the hunt. just Jim. Don't see his wife tonight. That's all right. Um, Anybody else have any other comments or questions?
She's here. She's just sewing.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
second ply best. I like that one.
Okay. Yeah. The one with the hair.
Classic.
All right, gang. I'm going to thank everybody for showing up and
Thank you, Gary.
wish everybody a
Thank you,
happy
gang.
weekend.
Thanks, Gary.
Very
Happy
welcome.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks for showing up.
You too. Yeah.
That's great.